How many men you got on this base, Colonel? Be a shame if they was to catch fire. Things burn. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Stench of Truth. It looks as though Obama's candidacy for the presidency has been groomed for a long time. Ever since he was elected to state office in Illinois, and further, whenever he was elected to the Senate, the Republicans fielded probably one of the worst candidates they could have against him in Alan Keyes. But it seemed rather likely that if they would have put anybody into that position that was a somewhat strong candidate, they would have soundly defeated Obama for the Senate in Illinois. And yet, he won relatively easily because Alan Keyes was a poor candidate against him. So there's been manipulation behind the scenes for a long time to get Obama where he is today. And that is because of the global elite. That is because of the powers behind the scenes. That is because of big fucking money being poured into his campaign and that is backing him. One of his chief backers is George Soros. And George Soros is an international financier and billionaire, someone who manipulates governments around the world, someone who attempts to influence political thought in almost every country, and more is having influence within the United States. His principal base of operations has been in Great Britain, but he's having more of an influence in the United States as well. And he is one of the principal backers behind Obama. So, what does this mean? George Soros is a globalist. George Soros is a billionaire elitist. George Soros is also a war profiteer. That's right, he's making a lot of money on the fucking war that is being waged right now, and which will continue to be waged in the future in the never-ending war on supposed terrorism. So, what does that say about the so-called peace candidate, Obama, when he has as one of his chief backers a war profiteer? You do the fucking math. But this goes further. George Soros, for a long time, has been trying to get referendums and paying lots of money to get state ballot initiatives and other things in this country to legalize drugs. Now, normally, this would be a good thing if it was done in a libertarian vein, which is what I support. I support the legalizing of drugs because I believe that you own your fucking body and you can do whatever the hell you want with it. So that includes using drugs, prostitution, anything that does not cause harm to anybody else. I think you have the right to do. And that means that I'm for legalizing drugs. Now, if you want to make a decision to use it, that's on you. That's on you. Whenever someone else or someone else's property is hurt, a crime has been committed, and you should be punished for that. I don't think it should matter whether you're under the influence of drugs, alcohol, or you do it just because you hate the person. It shouldn't make any difference what the motivation is behind the crime. If a crime has been committed, you need to pay the punishment for it. Simple as that. So I'm for legalizing drugs, but why do you suppose George Soros is for legalizing drugs? It's not for any libertarian bent on his part. It's the same agenda that is behind this movement everywhere, because everything has a fucking agenda. There is no such thing as something which happens for the good of everybody just because it happens to be so. There's an agenda behind it, And it's not a libertarian agenda where people own their own bodies, because more and more we're moving to a society where you do not own your own body, where you will not own your own property, where you will not have any personal privacy, where you will not have anything that you can call your own. Instead, the move by George Soros and those who are with him to legalize drugs is for several other reasons. First, big money for corporations who produce and distribute those drugs when they become legal. 2, big fucking money for governments when they tax the drugs whenever they're made legal. And 3, and most importantly, is the same reason why drugs were so prevalent in the 1960s, and that is for muting the opposition, for muting the counterculture, and for nipping the revolution in the bud. There's opposition in this country to war, which is growing. There's opposition in this country to the government-sponsored terrorism that is happening here and around the world, for the fake war on terror, for the continued occupation of Afghanistan and Iraq, and with the warmongering over Iran and Obama's plans on Pakistan. So, with a growing opposition, how do you confront it? Well, the government already has many different things that they're employing in that very endeavor. But how better than to use a tried and true technique that worked back in the 1960s to mute the opposition against the Vietnamese War and against the illegal actions of the CIA and other government agencies, notably the FBI with COINTELPRO, by legalizing drugs, in the hopes that it will dumb down and mute the opposition. When it becomes legal, more people will do it, or so the theory goes, and in that way, that will render them mute. No more opposition. So, the next time you're thinking about why drugs and the legalization thereof by George Soros and others by him is such an issue, why would he care? This is your answer. Because it serves a globalist agenda, and it serves the agenda of those in power to mute the opposition by making drugs legal and available to everybody, thinking that everybody's just going to be fucking zoned out and not care what happens, what wars are caused, what terrorism strikes. They'll just allow the government to do whatever the hell the government wants to fucking do. And this is the guy that's backing Obama for president. So, my prediction is that in the very near future, after Obama wins, if in fact he does, which looks like he probably will, is there's going to be more movement towards the legalization of drugs. And let's not forget that this would benefit Obama as well, because it's rumored that he has also been a drug user himself. In fact, he admits that he tried some drugs in his youth, supposedly, but there are other allegations about him continuing his use of drugs. I don't hold it against him myself, but it is hypocritical on his part to try to say that it isn't so if it is. And I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying those rumors are out there. So, this is the agenda. Put Obama in office, legalize drugs. Legalized drugs will mute the opposition, or so it is thought by the powers that be. So, that's what's coming down the road. Look for it, watch for it, see the motion happen, and decide for yourself whether or not my prediction is true. Coming legalization of drugs in the not too distant future. Thank you. Good night.